Hello, dear students. I hope you are all doing well in this season of pandemic. Are forced to stay at home for our safety, perhaps. And I hope it forced you to read something, some of your textbooks that are prescribed for your study while preparing for your examinations. Of course, this is a very unexpected, unwanted leisure that we are having at this time of pandemic because we can't avoid the situation. Anyhow, as you are continuing to stay at home, the government as well as our respected Vice Chancellor sir are trying to reach out to you. We are in continuous touch with you through WhatsApp groups and also in different webinars that we are organizing. You are taking part and other activities you are doing, being at home also. I hope you have made it academically or academically fruitful to some extent, being at home also. So, to begin with, this is the first recorded lecture that I am going to present you now, because we are getting, as our academic year is getting delayed, it is planned to have recorded lectures so that you can view at your leisure and get back with your uh, doubts, if any, or your observations, and also following the lectures with all the assignments given, if any, being in touch with the concerned teacher. As the head of the department, of our department, I welcome you to this recorded lecture, and I wish you all the best for your academic year, the second year. And in this semester, the third semester, I am glad to announce that I'll be dealing with this paper 4 of this semester, that is literary criticism. And as you all know, that I have dealt with two toughest of the papers in your first and second semesters, that is poetry. And now I'll be dealing with this paper, which however is felt tough by all the batches of the students, but I used to make it simpler and friendly to the students, so that they can develop a kind of critical point of view in reading literature, especially because as students of literature, it is not that we read literature for pleasure always, but we read it with a purpose. And because reading is more important for us as students of literature, and we have to study with a different point of view rather than the general reading or pleasure reading, etc. So in this semester, I'll be dealing with the literary criticism. So let me just remind you of the topics that are prescribed for your study in this semester, in this paper especially, because I don't know whether you are having the all your syllabus copies taken. So I am trying to share my screen now so that you can have a look at the the syllabus. I hope you can read now. So the literary criticism syllabus is like this. We have background topics, as it is the case with all the previous semesters also. And this in background, you have mimesis, Indian aesthetics, rasa, dhwani, new criticism, feminism. And then unit 1 is Aristotle's poetics, and unit 2 is Indian aesthetics, which is dedicated to Bharata and Anandavardhana. Selections from the texts of Bharata, Natya Shastra and Anandavardhana Dhanyaloka will be taught to you in the due course of time. And in unit 3, we have Eliot and Clement Brooks, the part of new criticism. And then feminist literary criticism, we have unit 4, where you have Ellen Shoulder and Gilbert and Gubar's essays prescribed for your study. So these are the topics which are prescribed for your study. And though it may appear very simple, when we go into the deep or study of this, you'll be understanding how difficult or how we will learn much out of this. So let us see how much we are familiar with this criticism. In fact, let me tell you that we are very much familiar with the C word. The C word is the critic, which is a noun that is to indicate the person. And we have all the derivatives of the critic here, like criticism, critique, criticize, critical, critically, etc. So I have given you the various parts of speech of this, and the meanings of these words also. And you will all agree with me that we are familiar with this verb form mostly, which with its negative tone, because we often blame our fellow beings for criticizing us. I hope you all agree with me. And we all are very familiar with this word, yet when someone asks you to say what is the meaning of this, we actually cannot, or we cannot always say what this criticism is. In spite of our familiarity, it always remains a very strange word for us, especially being the students of literature. Now, just have a look at the genesis of the word or etymology of the word, that is critic or criticism, which is borrowed from Greek to Latin and then into English. As you could see on the slide, the criticus, Latin criticus, it came from kritikos of Greek, and then it is borrowed into English, and with the meaning of, discerning, capable of judging, separated or picked out, etc. So with this etymology, I just want to say that this word came into existence, or the word critic is used for the first time only during the 16th century in general, and into literature it came into during the 17th century. It came into literature during early 17th centuries. And now we can have a look at the different meanings of these words as given by the leading dictionaries, where you can observe what is criticism actually, how it is having different kinds of meanings. Like here, Merriam-Webster's defines criticism as the act of criticizing, usually unfavorably. As I told you that we are familiar with the unfavorable or the negative tones of this word. Here also in the dictionary, if you refer to Merriam-Webster's, we can find that this is an act of criticizing, usually very unfavorable. And it is also a critical observation or a remark or a critique. And then it is given that this is the art of evaluating or analyzing works of art or literature also. Here we can see how different meanings are there in the highlighted red color words that I have included here. This is the scientific investigation of literary documents. The third one, as Merriam-Webster defines what is criticism, is the scientific investigation of literary documents. So while leaving this Merriam-Webster's, let us see what Collins Dictionary offers regarding the criticism. It says that criticism is the action of expressing disapproval of something or someone. And this is a statement that expresses disapproval. As we have seen unfavorable in Merriam-Webster, Here also it is in the similar tones, a the synonymous word, that is disapproval. And then we have the synonymous synonyms like fault finding, censure, disapproval, disparagement, etc. As an uncountable noun, criticism is a serious examination and judgment of something, such as a book or play. So the last meaning is very important for us, as Merriam-Webster also includes it, and the Collins dictionary also includes it. And if you check for the Oxford Advanced Learners, which is very popular with us while reading literature, you know that this is the meaning, which of course is given in the Oxford dictionary also. When we, after having a look at all these meanings from different dictionaries, here I made this, the essence of all these dictionary entries. You could see here, three senses are mainly we can find out for criticism, how it is used and what are these three senses. You can read on the screen. This is like fault finding, analysis, and appraisal. So these three senses, of course, are very popular, and we use in the meaning of the word criticism. Here, let me tell you something in general. Nature of our daily discourse, as you all know, or discourse in the sense, I mean to say that our conversations or dialogues, they are all filled with these three senses. Let's take, for example, when two people are interacting, obviously there will be a fault finding session. In the sense, when two people talk, we are talking about the third person, and maybe to discuss what is her fault or his fault, etc. Because a dialogue takes place about something or someone. Usually this is the nature of the dialogue or discourse. And then we have an analysis of the act done by someone. Naturally, we do analyze the acts of others when we talk, or when a dialogue is going on between the listener and the speaker. And the third part is an appraisal of something to the listener. Between the speaker and the listener, there is some kind of appraisal going on. And so these three senses of the word criticism, unknowingly, unconsciously, we will be using daily in our conversations, which is called as discourse. And without this, perhaps I can say there may not be any talk between two people. If you go to the technical models of communication also, where you have a listener, a speaker, etc., and a speaker speaks, and for the speaker to speak, you need some subject, and that subject can be sometimes analysis or appraisal or fault finding, and the listener to listen and then to respond. So this I am just telling you this to familiarize the word criticism. It is not that something very far away from us. We often and regularly involve in this kind of criticism, the word in its meaning actually. So in general, this is what is criticism. But as the students of literature, now something is added to this word criticism, that is literary criticism. So as part of your first year, first semester, you have read Introduction to Literature, where you have an elaborate discussion or classes to know what is literature. So there, from there, you know what is literary. Whatever is pertaining to literature is literary for us. and the criticism that is dealing with a piece of literature, we can say, is literary criticism. So after my general introduction to these three senses prevailing in our daily discourse as well as in the criticism, let us see what is literary criticism. I have here presenting the Encyclopedia Britannica, which gives the a sort of definition like this, like literary criticism is the reasoned consideration of literary works and issues. It applies as a term to any argumentation about literature, whether or not specific works are analyzed. So let us focus on this phrase like reasoned consideration of literary works. So literary criticism is a reasoned consideration of literary works. You know, what is this consideration? It is nothing but giving our evaluation of the work. For example, you have been, you have gone through so many poems in your first semester and second semesters, as well as essays, novels, or short stories also. But because I taught you poetry, I am taking the example of poems. You know what we did, analyzing the poems is literary criticism only, because when we are analyzing the poem, it is the reasoned consideration of a poem that we are providing there. And poem, of course, is a literary work, a piece of literature. And then we used to study what type of poem it is, what form it is, etc., or what are the themes, and what is the tone, and what the poet is trying to convey to us, what is the meaning, etc. So whatever you have studied to write about the poem, like you have this stock question of writing a critical analysis of the poem. The critical analysis of the poem comes under literary criticism only, in a way. And then it applies to, here Encyclopedia Britannica is telling that it applies as a term to any argumentation about literature. So whatever argumentation about literature, whether or not specific works are analyzed. For example, you, as part of your syllabus, have read Preface to Shakespeare, which is considered as one of the important literary critical texts in English literary critical tradition, written by Samuel Johnson, who is a very gigantic personality during his time. During his time, when he wrote the Preface to Shakespeare, he was a very keen editor of the works of Shakespeare, and he has all the praise for Shakespeare. And he tried to establish how Shakespeare was very real or realistic in portraying his characters or themes, etc. So then it is evident that he has taken literary works, but there are others who there were critics who tried to present what is literature. If you take Sir Philip Sidney's Ars Poetica or Biographia Literaria and etc., you will be noticing that they may not be referring to any particular work, but they may be considering what is literature, their argumentation about literature, what is literature, if not literature, what is poetry, etc. So they may not be considering any specific works, or it is not the analysis of any works of any writer, poet, or novelist, etc. Yet they are considering what is literature. So this is very important for us. So what is literary criticism is finally we can conclude that literary criticism is a recent consideration, and to put it in very general terms, it is like a just evaluation of a piece of literature, we can say. Whether it is a just or not, or how just we should be, it is a different matter. We can discuss in the coming lectures. Now, to say why should we criticize? And we have now came to know what is literary criticism. And then you might be thinking, why should we criticize? For that, actually, we have functions here. You will be knowing that there are reviews of books in newspapers like Hindu or Chronicle or Express, or even in Telugu newspapers. If a new book is released, a review of that book appears. In fact, the reviews are written by the critics only. It is a part of criticism. It is review of a book is nothing but the one sort of criticism, and this becomes one of the major no, though major or minor, it is one of the functions of literary criticism. We review books in order to summarize what is there in that book to the readers, and also sometimes good reviews may attract so many readers, or that book may find a good market. And then the second function of the literature is to express the shifts in the sensibility. What are these shifts? So we have different periods of literature in which different movements were there, like you have romantic, neoclassical movement, or romantic movement, Victorian movement, etc., or periods, wherein you will find a kind of shift from the themes or style or content, etc. So a critic may be observing these shifts in the sensibility of the poets, in their writing styles, or in using the language and taking the themes, etc. So criticism, of course, has this function of exposing these shifts in the sensibility. For example, Samuel Johnson has presented about Shakespeare, and he has all the praise for Shakespeare. But when you come to 20th century beginning, you have Eliot, who had brought the metaphysical poets into the focus. And during that time, the metaphysicals during their lifetime were never recognized. And they were actually, in a way, mocked at by Samuel Johnson, and no one were recognized. And but for Eliot's work, the metaphysical poets who revived. So the function of criticism sometimes becomes that it brings to life some of the poets or writers who were forgotten in the history and the annals, or sometimes who are ignored. Their greatness will be coming to the forefront after their period. Posthumously, some of the writers or poets will be recognized by the work of a critic. So, literary criticism has this function of expressing the shifts in this sensibility, and then it has the another function. This is to introduce new books to the public. We have different sorts of um, reviews are published in the weeklies or dailies or fortnightly or monthly or bi-monthly, etc., wherein new books will be given, introduced to the public to read, and they will be providing sometimes good authors, sometimes they may be receiving the negative criticism also, yet the negative criticism, of course, may turn positive after some time, we don't know. As you have the example of John Keats, as I used to tell you, when John Keats published his Hyperion, he received a stringent criticism against the poem because he wrote it in the Cockney dialect, and as that affected his health also, that we know how unfavorable reviews or unfavorable criticism has affected kids for his early death. Whether it is true or not, it is stated that his health was severely affected by the stringent criticism leveled against by this. So, of course, the literary criticism has the function of introducing the new books or new authors or new forms also at times, with a different range of publications, like publishing it in dailies or weeklies, etc. It has different functions. And of course, sometimes it is felt that the critics are like monarchs, and they are the ones who make or mar the future of the poets or writers. We may not be sure of this, whether the critics are completely making or marring the future of the authors or the lives of others, etc. Some authors who are not at all recognized in their lifetime will become the popular authors after their death, or in the succeeding periods, or in future, etc. So some to briefly, we can say that these are the functions of criticism. Why should we bring out a criticism? One more thing I can say, it is for the better understanding of ourselves that we would write the critical analysis. As you have the habit of writing the critical analysis of all the poems that are prescribed for your study, because that is a question often comes in your examinations also. As your own experience will tell you that the critical analysis is improving your understanding of the particular text, and reading the text or a poem, whatever it is, again and again to bring out the critical points will increase your understanding capacity, and sometimes it helps you to enjoy the reading also, and to bring out some new points of view which the previous readers might not have come across. So, reading criticism is not for these functions that I have mentioned, but it is also for a better understanding of the text on part of the reader, that the criticism is more important. It is not only to promote the author sometimes, or demote the authors at sometimes. That is what happened in the history, we can see. But it is also for, what you say, our own understanding, our own enjoyment. As you read the text or the poem, a piece of literature again and again, you will find a sort of happiness, and your understanding gives you a better way of reading, and also you will learn something. Of course, the final aim, or some didactic approach of for literature, the study of literature tells that finally, after reading a text, you have to gain something. And what is that? Besides the pleasure, it is like the instruction, the ethical instruction or moral, etc. So literature is there not only to give us enjoyment or entertainment or pleasure, but it is also for the moral or ethical instruction. So a critical reading of text, or the criticism of a particular text, will develop your knowledge of how to read literature, as well as at the same time giving you the pleasure of reading. And with this few lines of introduction, I just want to focus upon some popular definitions of literary criticism. It is not like exactly the definition, but what is it that we are doing when we say this is literary criticism, or what is the function of literary criticism, etc. So, Eliot, as you all know, is a very popular poet and critic also, who is the harbinger behind the new criticism. He says that function of criticism is elucidation of works of art and the correction of taste. For him, a criticism is an impersonal process, and argues that rather than expressing a critic's emotions about or impressions of a work, criticism is grounded in fact. So we're looking at this definition or the function of criticism given by Eliot. We can see that it is the explanation of the work of art. Work of art is nothing but a text of literature, a piece of literature, and the correction of taste. Whatever the taste that the people are having at the time, or whatever the shift of sensibility, as I told you, that is happening in a particular age, that criticism will bring out, or a critic will bring out. And for him, it is an impersonal process. So, critic, of course, the difference that we can find between the general use of the word criticism and the specific use of criticism in literature is the impersonal. We always say that criticism should be just and impartial and unbiased, and it is only giving the facts. The facts of merits or demerits or of the poet or writer, whatever it is, and we have to state everything. It is not simply praising, ignoring the faults, or it is not simply criticizing, ignoring the merits. That is what is Johnson did, because you are familiar with the preface to Shakespeare, where he lists the merits of Shakespeare as well as the merits of Shakespeare. So it is not whether you like the poet or the writer, etc., if you know him personally, but it is just like grounding our evaluation in facts, the facts regarding the text or its form or its themes, and the style of writing and language, etc. So criticism is always impartial, impersonal. That is what Eliot said. But we can see how far great critics are impartial or unbiased, etc. when we come to the next chapters. When we read individual topics that are prescribed for your study, we can examine this point of view. Now, let us try to see another popular definition, that is according to Arnold, criticism. Matthew Arnold, who is famous for his touchstone method, who is a very popular poet, as you have read Dover Beach also, who of course presents the pessimistic view of the Victorian period. You are familiar with Matthew Arnold. Matthew Arnold is not only a poet but also a critic, a popular critic who is popular for his touchstone method. And he says that it is the dissemination of ideas, an unprejudiced and impartial effort to study and spread the best that is known and thought in the world. So, what is a critic's job, or what is that that criticism is doing, is to reveal to the world the best. So, by studying without any prejudice, without any partiality, we have to make an effort to study the text, and we have to spread the best that is there in the text, within the text. So, criticism is nothing but bringing out the inner meaning of the text. With we have different approaches how to study a text, etc. For this we will come in the next class. So for Arnold, criticism is a sort of judgment. So when you are criticizing, you are giving a judgment, and of course when the legal word judgment is used, you should know what implications it will have. A judgment of course is based upon so many things, so many witnesses, etc. And when we are passing on some comments upon the great writers, we should have the evidences for that, as Samuel Johnson shows in his preface to Shakespeare, with all the merits where Shakespeare excels, and demerits where he to certain extent marks his own mastery of writing, etc. And so just like that, it's a sort of judgment. Arnold says that it is a sort of judgment in which the critic uses his special knowledge and training. Of course, critics are trained, and critics are, like judges. They have to judge a book, as judges judge the criminals, or under the trials. So like a judge, a critic also should judge a work of art with a special knowledge and training. So with this brief introduction, I hope I have clarified to the maximum extent what criticism is in general, as well as literary criticism also. So it is very familiar, and when it comes to literature, what it is, I try to present it very briefly, and in a very general terms, I try to present what is criticism, and its origin, its etymology, and then its functions, and then what is literary criticism. So literary criticism, to sum up, is nothing but a just evaluation of a piece of literature. That is what I could say that literary criticism is. So students, I hope you have had a little good understanding of what is criticism and what is literary criticism, and I have given you a glance of the syllabus prescribed for your study also. And so go through the syllabus, and before I start the first unit, I have some more classes of introduction where I'll be introducing you to different approaches for literary criticism, and what is the difference between criticism and theory, literary criticism and literary theory. We have these two concepts, and what is the difference between these two. And if you have any doubts regarding this lecture, I invite you to mail or to interact in our WhatsApp group. You are all free to interact through the WhatsApp group. Instead of calling, you try to post questions through mails. And in the next class, I'll be giving you some assignments also. So please be ready, downloading some of the articles, or research articles, or notes, or whatever it is, collecting some material regarding the syllabus that is prescribed for your studies, because you may have to submit the online assignments, etc. In the next class, I'll be giving some written test also, for which you can just mail your answers for the questions that I'll be giving to you on the lecture that I have given to you. Have a nice time. We'll meet again in the next lecture. Thank you, all of you.